Hello everyone, and it's time for Astrology in the News. And today is March 30th, 2018, and of course, happy Passover! And welcome to the full moon conjunct Saturn, Mercury, square Mars, and Saturn. Crazy stuff, man. So anyway, to start off with mailbag, and I would like to say thank you to Donovan. So yeah, Donovan sent me an email. He said, you talked about the Pope not believing in hell yesterday. Is there a version of hell according to yoga? Donovan. Okay, well, of course, if anybody else wants to email me, my email is nobsyoga@gmail.com if you have any questions. So, Donovan, that is actually, I don't have a straight answer to that. There's not a straight yes or no answer. The answer is kind of. So, in yoga, and well, I'll tell you, let me talk Hinduism. Hinduism believes that there's different planes of existence or worlds of existence called lokas, and some are higher and some are lower. So I guess you could call some of the lower lokas hell in a way. Um, Hindus mainly believe that there's many different dimensions to existence, and some of the lower lokas could kind of be considered hellish, but it's more on the way that you differentiate between Christianity and Hinduism is it's not a black or white thing. There's actually, like I said, various levels. So like basically higher levels, and this is kind of a new age concept. The higher levels are like in a higher vibration than lower levels. It's kind of like the lower down you go, and even lower is just a metaphor. Things get denser. So it's kind of like you can even think of matter kind of coming into more of a denser form. Like like how when matter kind of goes into like an absolute zero state, it's perfectly motionless. So that's kind of how I could describe what like yoga considers hell. Now, another way to look at this is that yoga considers hell is from like a metaphorical standpoint, it's like any time when you're in a state of ignorance. So um, in yoga, hell is considered being unaware, and when you're aware, you kind of work your way closer to heaven. So that's kind of the short and long of it. So anyway, speaking of yogic wisdom of the day, yoga is a dance between control and surrender, and this is by Joel Kramer. So is getting into the Starbucks drive-through, which has been really pissing me off lately. I mean, shit, this thing is going out into the street and it's getting obnoxious. Coffee isn't that good, so you just park your car and walk in. But man, talk about Thunderdome. So, and of course, like I was saying, it is Passover and the Palestinians are getting very squirrely. And of course, are the squirrels getting more Palestinian? It's hard to tell sometimes. But no, this is actually due to this mundane conjunction here. And by mundane, I just say this is a chart, and you can see here, like I was saying, the Sun and Mercury conjunct. We're almost at a full moon, and then of course you have Saturn and Mars square this Mercury action. So this weekend, I mean, we're going to see a lot of emotional intensity. So I've been telling people to just be careful traveling this weekend. Be sure that you kind of watch out for things. Another prediction I said is that I don't know how this or not the International Space Station, the Chinese space station crashing into Earth. I don't know how that's going to end up. A little worried about it because its timing kind of coincides with these conjunctions, especially on April 1st. So I guess we'll kind of see what happens with that. Okay. Next, Ready Player One is opening this weekend, and of course, I don't know if you're excited for it. I'm kind of excited for it, and I'm going to go see this. And of course, it's set in the future where Tucson has completely taken over the world because it's more of a vertical Tucson instead of side by side trailers. So, yes. I'm telling you, Tucson is spreading. People are like, why do you hate Tucson? You really need to be there to experience it. Anyway, so this is Steven Spielberg's chart. So we actually have a birth time, date, and location for Steven Spielberg, who is now in his Ketu Dasa, which is kind of interesting. That's usually a reclusive time. It really depends on what other aspects he has in the chart. So yes, Mr. Spielberg is a Scorpio with Mercury, the ascendant, and the south node of the moon all in the first house. And of course, any time that you have a planet conjunct your ascendant, it makes you fairly famous. So he has Mercury conjunct his ascendant. Now, Scorpios are very good at digging into the mysteries of life and the occult, and there is some of a hint of this stuff in Mr. Spielberg's work, especially when it comes to outer space and aliens, E.T. And then, of course, he has Mars conjunct the Sun, too, here in the second house. great for people that are making their own destiny. Second house here, this is in Sagittarius. So Mars does well in Sagittarius, and so does the Sun because they're friends of Jupiter. And then if we look at where Jupiter is placed, now this is interesting. Jupiter, Moon, and Venus are all in the 12th house, and this is in the sign of Libra. And then, of course, now the passion for filmmaking, film really Taurus, I would say it's Tauran and Pisces. Those are the two ones that I think rule filming. Even you could make an argument for Gemini too, because Gemini rules broadcasting. So the north node of the moon here is in the sign of Taurus, so this is where his passion is. And also conjunct Uranus too. Now Venus, Moon, and Jupiter here, all in the sign of the 12th house. This usually shows some sort of loss, probably revolving around the mother or something like that. So I need to take a look at Spielberg's bio, but Venus is well placed in the sign of, Venus is well placed in the sign of Libra, along with Jupiter. Jupiter doesn't do so well in Libra, but because it's conjunct the ruler of the house that's actually in the same house, I'm sorry, the ruler of the sign, it actually helps lift it up. Same with the moon here too. The moon is more or less neutral, I would say, in the sign of Libra. So yeah, interesting chart. So Arnold Schwarzenegger had to go to the into emergency heart surgery, and you know what? I wonder what they found. Maybe it was an artificial ticker in there. You know, it's a Terminator joke. I like to stroke my chin. It makes me feel smart. Anyway, Arnold Schwarzenegger's chart. So now this is when we're talking about fame. This is just the same as Steven Spielberg. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is a Gemini ascendant with Mercury conjunct the ascendant to the very same degree. And also to the sign of Venus isn't too far off from this either. And Mercury too is in its own natural sign of Gemini. So this is very good. Actually, this is a pretty intellectual placement. So Mr. Schwarzenegger has a lot of creative utility to him. Now the interesting thing is, since he was a bodybuilder, usually bodybuilders we associate with Mars, also too in the fire sign. So, you know, I would maybe say probably some of his Western placements, like all the Sun, Venus, and Saturn. Well, Venus would move into the sign of Leo, but the Sun and Saturn would move into the sign of Leo. Now this is in the sign of Cancer. Usually people that have things in the planets in the sign of Cancer. Now this is in the second house, so that's pretty good for money. But usually all these things in the sign of Cancer promotes to somebody that's either a minister or in the healing profession. So I would say honestly that Mr. Schwarzenegger's his Western chart more accurately reflects him than his Eastern chart. So, but now the Eastern chart is very good at dashas, so, are actually expressing dashas. So right now he's in his Jupiter dasha. Jupiter's in the 5th house in the sign of Libra, so he's actually going through a Jupiter return right now. Jupiter just went retrograde, and it's going to be creeping up on itself here in a couple of months. So let's keep an eye on his health. This actually isn't necessarily bad because Jupiter rules his 7th and 10th house. So Jupiter is actually a good planet for Gemini. And being in the 5th house, that's not a bad placement. So I don't see anything particularly bad coming up on the health front. I mean, sure, he had a heart problem, but, you know, Venus is, you know, he's in a Jupiter-Venus dasha, and Venus does okay in the sign of Cancer. It makes somebody a little bit too emotional. So anyway, yeah, very interesting look at his chart. So that is all I have time for today. If you want to send me like if you have any questions or want me to cover anybody's chart here on the program, all the contact links are below. Otherwise, have a great day. And of course, thank you so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe.